Okay, what we have made here is a drip tray for the aquarium, and it'll catch the condensation or any leaks if the aquarium develops them at a later time. Okay, and what happens is that we've used this 45 millimeter rubber liner from Firestone that's sold at pond stores and online, and we have a drip location here. Anywhere you can locate the drip anywhere you want, you know, that works for you, and we'll place a bucket underneath of it, and then cut the flap that's left there, you know, to make the thing work, drip to the bucket. So right now we have the the insulation board cut for the bottom of the aquarium, and we left on the three sides that are the two sides and the rear, we've left at least an inch spacing for the 1 inch insulation board. In the front, I suggest that you leave at least a half an inch to an inch. It depends on what you want. That way the water can, the condensation can drip right all the way down to the bottom. So I think since we've got plenty of room, Chuck, does it work out with you if we leave another inch? Can you like make a frame that goes inside? Yeah, okay. So that is what we're going to do. So this here tray is made out of 2 by 2 by 8, just regular pine wood, and then we capped it off with a 1.5 inch fern strips that are 3/4 of an inch thick. Basically, that's just to hold the liner in place after we stapled it in place. Also, you can form nice corners by using the foam board to make nice square corners in the tray. Yeah. So the whole idea is just that we have a tray here that's waterproof, that'll catch any water that condensates or drips off the aquarium and goes into a bucket. Now, one other thing I did in mine, I actually made mine bigger than the aquarium, and I put my filter on there. Even though it's a gravity filter, those fluvels, I have several of them that have in different places run at the same level as the aquarium. So I have my fluval included in the tray too. So any leaks there or when you're working on it, it catches that. Let me turn it the other way once.
Now comes the fun process of putting the tank onto some boards to help lift it up.
I'll lift it.
Just stick the books under. There you go.
Now, do we have a preference which looks better for that way?
I was going to stand first.
No, you back up.
Well, that's it. No, it's got
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right. Here we go. I know it early.
These guys make it look easy. It is a lot heavier than it looks.
I don't know, it looks awful heavy.
One tip I'll give our viewers, when you're doing a tank this large, it helps to retest the tank, make sure it doesn't leak, especially if it's a used tank.
From this way, some.
Yeah. And this tank was donated to Trout in the Classroom by Ecatone. They donated quite a bit of the aquarium accessories, including a chiller. Okay.
Yeah, so we tested this tank when we first got it. We had it outside. We filled it up all the way with water and made sure that there weren't any leaks. Our first tank that we got ended up leaking after the second day, and so we have to recaulk that. But this one was sturdy and didn't leak, so it is ready to be used. And they've got it almost matched up with the foam that we put down for the insulation on the bottom of the tank.
I'll line it up more. Just back a little bit.
That's good. That'd be good.
Might be just bring it forward. You can line it up anymore.
Look at that. All right, we're just going to be doing some chem tests before we move the fish over, just so we know what this water is at. We're probably also going to be using some of this water in there, since it's already been acclimated, it has good bacteria and everything in it, and we won't stress the fish out as much if we just throw them into new water. So I'm just getting our little tubes filled, and we're going to do our pH, our ammonia, our nitrate, and our nitrite.
Jenna, what's the temperature on the gauge over there?
Temperature right now is 56.8.
Okay. All right, our center line for the temperature we set the chiller for is 58. So it's got a 2-degree fluctuation high and low, with 58 being the center point.
So the pH is an immediate test, so that you can look at, and we're at about a 7.2. Helps best in natural light, so you can really see what color it's at. This one is the nitrite. Ammonia. The ammonia is 2 separate bottles.
This is very important that you shake it after the first indicator fluid that you're putting in there.
And then the nitrate is the same, except shake it for a lot longer. Shake for a little bit, and then you let it sit for 5 minutes to get an accurate result.
And we'll come back in 5 minutes to check the results out. Okay, we moved the test indicator so that we're in indirect light to make it a little easier to show you the actual colors on here. As compared to the chart where you figure the value, match the value up. We're in indirect light now, and for filming it actually makes it a little bit better. All right, Jenna, go ahead and read them out. What do you got?
So again, our pH is right around 7.2. Our nitrites are around, not quite a 0.5, but a little more than a 0.25.
Okay.
Then our ammonia is right around a 0.25. And then our troublesome nitrates that we've been having issues with is closer to that 160 range.
Okay. Now, we have 3 large 12-inch Rainbow Trout, and they produce a lot of nitrates. And the funny thing is that normally when you're running a tank with the small eggs up through the fingerlings, you have more of an ammonia problem than a nitrate problem. And this is just the opposite. We don't have an ammonia problem, we have more of a nitrate problem. And the only real way to get the nitrate lower is to do water changes. And they have to be significant in this stage. You will not run into that when you're doing the normal eggs into the fingerlings. One other thing too is that we can reduce the amount of nitrates that are going in there by lessening the food and having less fish or smaller fish. So this is an indicator of the big fish, what they do. Okay, we're going to do one more test. We're going to do the KH test, and we're going to check the water. When you initially start your aquarium out, we like the value to be about 150 or so. And the reason for that is, as the ammonia nitrogen cycle progresses and the bacteria changes the ammonia from an ammonia state into the nitrite and then the nitrate, in the first stage when it's converting the ammonia, it uses up a lot of the hydrogen ions, and what that does is that tends to lower the pH of the tank. And what I have noticed is that if you're not careful in doing your chem test, in other words, doing them every couple days or every day, depending upon your situation, you'll find out that all of a sudden the pH drops from a 7-point-something value down into the low 6s. And what you may think is that it's sitting at a 6.2, but actually that is the bottom line of our test indicators, and it can be much lower than that. And we have had several tanks of dead fish because they have dropped down into the 5.0 range, and even the 4.0 range without anybody being any wiser. So it's very important to keep an eye on that pH. You might not think it's important.
169.
I'm sorry, what do you have?
169.
Oh my goodness, she's got some good water. Okay, now, what you do, typically when you if you're using city water, the KH is usually around 55 or so, or 50 to 55. It's a good idea to test the water straight out of the tap from where you're using it so you know what you're doing. And then as you're adding water, you can add some baking soda at the same time, just regular baking soda, a teaspoon or 2 teaspoons at a time, depending upon how much water you're putting in. And that will keep the KH at a higher value. Once it falls below 100, then it starts dropping pretty quickly. Okay, this is the high quality KH test kit that we're using. It's from Hannah. It cost about, I think, $60-some. You can get it on directly from Hannah, and it's got some fluids that cost $20 a bottle. Typically, you go through a whole bottle of fluids there. This works very well and gives you a digital reading on the output rather than having to count the drops in the API test kit. So that if you're doing this a lot and you have a lot of problems, I highly recommend that you get one of these test kits.
All right, so what we're doing right now is we're just filling up our tank a little bit, mainly to see what temperature our well water is. We don't want to shock the fish too much by moving them from 50-some degree water to currently 80-degree water. Of course, this is
Wow.
sticking out a little bit, but yeah, let me feel it. Sometimes the water, it's warm, definitely. Sometimes the water comes out really warm, other times it comes out cold. So we want to make sure that filling it up a little bit with tap water, we're then going to take some of our old tank water, put it over here that's already cold. It's going to help to cool it a little bit. And then we're going to put our chiller on and have the chiller cool itself down back into our 50s so that we don't stress out our fish.
And actually, you know what, Jenna? I have a slightly different idea now that I just thought of. Why don't we put about 3, maybe 4 to 6 inches of water in there, and let's put the chiller coil in there and let it chill the water. It won't take more than an hour or so, and to bring it down some, so then we don't have to mix, that warmer water with the other tank water. Okay. That's another thing. This is one of the great things about this Trout in the Classroom program. There's a lot of thinking going on, a lot of education, and a lot of learning and mistakes. And the mistakes are good. As you know, we try not to kill the fish, but sometimes that happens. But you learn a lot, and it's a problem-solving thing for the students. Okay, all right. So what we're going to do is stop the video here, let some water build up in there, and then we'll go ahead and put the chiller in. Okay, what we're doing here is we're filling the tank up with spring water that's actually running about 82 degrees, if you can believe that. And we stuck the chiller coil, the wand, in the water, and we put a pump in here to circulate the water so that the water will run past the coil, and some of the heat in the water will actually transfer into the coil and then be ejected as air out of the chiller. So we're going to chill this water down a little bit more before we start adding water from the tank.
Alright, so now what we're going to do is we're setting up our filter for our tank. We're using the Cascade 1500 series. I really like Cascade brand filters because this one in particular has a higher capacity than the Blue Ball that we have used for our old tank, but also it's extremely cheap, which sometimes isn't always the best because you get what you pay for. But these things, so far I've worked with them for the past 4 or 5 years with our exhibits, such as our Diamondback Terrapin exhibit, and they work really well. And if a part breaks, they're also good at, you can easily buy replacement parts and everything like that. So for our filter here, the other thing that I like about it is it's clear for the most part, and so you can actually see in and see how much debris or anything is in them, whereas the Blue Ball ones are opaque, so you can't see through them. So for our baskets here, typically what Cascade just sends you is going to be mostly the baskets are just filled with your fine filter floss material, and then their bottom kind of the thicker floss material, and then the rest of the baskets are just filled with the floss, but you can easily modify it and put whatever you need to put into each of your baskets. So how we're going to set this up is we have our 2 floss pads going down at the bottom, and then we have our next floss pad right here. And then with these filters, you just want to make sure that the little handles are pushed all the way down and that they kind of nestle and lock on top of each other to make sure that they fit in. Then our next one is going to be our biological filter material here, and then also our charcoal.
Here, show that one more time.
Yep.
Okay. Okay.
So
got
these
it.
things basically they hold the good bacteria in them, and that is the bacteria is helping to also break down some of the fish waste and things like that.
And the one thing there about these the biomass that we're using, it's a ceramic porous material with a hole in the center, so there's a lot of surface area for the bacteria to cling to. So we're actually putting in what, 3 boxes?
3 baskets full of our Blue Ball biomass here, and then 2 of them have our charcoal bag, and then the top is just, again, our biomass going right on top. Again, making sure everything's clicked down and everything looks like it's lined up. And then with this, it's just a cover grate right here that we're gonna stick on. Like that. There we go. And that's now locked in, and to just get it off, you just pull it up by the 2 holes right there. Now, typically it's going to say about putting the top on and priming it with the priming pump. I find these filters to kind of cheat the system a little bit, and it actually helps kind of get the flow going a little bit, is to fill this almost up to the top with water to begin with. And then what you're going to do is figure out where your intake is, which is this one. And that just slips into the hole there and on top, like that. And then once you make sure that it's down, then you can just clip your sides on and you're good to go. Then when we hook up the tubing, the other nice thing about the Cascades here is it clearly states in and out, and it's color coordinated with all of the different pieces that you're going to need to put your tubing in. So once your tubes are hooked up, so I'll just put the attachment on here. So then your actual piping goes right into there, you seal it off and you're good to go. The lovely thing about these then is they have valves here, and so you can just turn the valve off and then unscrew the whole thing, leave the piping, and then take your filter wherever you need to go to dump it, to clean it, things like that. Come back, screw it back on, push the valve open again, and it'll start flowing again. Alright, so what we're going to do here, now that we have the filter all leveled and set up right, before we take some of the old tank water and fill this up, because again our old tank water has a lot of the already good bacteria and everything in it, we're going to proceed to add even more bacteria with our Night Out 2 starter bacteria. Because this is a brand new tank and it's such a large tank, we're going to be adding 150 milliliters to it. So,
And actually, that is the typical dose when you start a tank up for the first time, even the 55-gallon tanks that's listed in the TIC guide.
that was 20. That's why I got another one, and we bought a big one. That's 50. 75. 100. 125. And 150. Right on top. So then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and put some of our tank water from our old tank into here. Put this over. We're just going to take it right off the top, right where it's coming out. I love this vacuum because it has a little squeezy thing, so it helps so you don't have to suck it with your mouth, because that always stinks. And these filters hold more water than you'd think they would.
Yeah, typically 3 to 4 gallons. So have you stole gas out of a car by sucking the gas out in the
No,
tube?
I
Is that
have
where your
not.
experience comes
No.
from?
No. I don't know which is worse, though. If gas would be worse, or if fish water is worse. Fish water, I think, is better than turtle water, though.
Yeah.
Usually I'm sucking out turtle water. right to the grate on the top. If you overfill it, it's fine. Just know that when you put the top on, it's just gonna squirt out some water at you. Should do it.
Okay, while we're doing that, we'll pan over here to the thermometer on our tank, and we are at down to 71.3 degrees. We've still got a way to go. I actually thought it was lower than that, but it's coming down.
Definitely lower than the 80 that it was at. All right, so now we have it filled up, and now we're just gonna, again, stick our lid.
Oh, talk about the little gasket on
Okay,
it.
so this gasket is supposed to, when you put it on, it's supposed to go on this. Sometimes, though, it gets stuck on here. However you can get it to stick on, it's just to provide a little bit more suction ring around there so that the water doesn't seep out. And then we're just gonna stick that back on top again. Get the cord out of the way. Flip it on down. There we go. And we are ready to hook up our tubes. Alright, so now we're going to put our tubing on. So again, the filter itself says which one's the intake, which one's the outtake. So if we double check, blue is the intake. So our intake tube is going to be sucking in the water from the tank and putting it into the filter. So this is your intake valve here. Nice thing about this is it does extend. And so we're going to attach this up here.
Yeah, I think Cascade put a lot of thought into their filter setup.
I'll just slide it over. They then have the little joint here that makes sure that it locks it on for you so it doesn't leak. Right. And then they also come with the little suction cups so that it will hold your valve wherever you need it to be. It helps if you're not as short as I am. Oh no. I will say I fight with these a lot though. There we go. Alright, so that's holding our intake right there. Get our thermometer back. So then we have our outtake, which is where the water is going to be shooting out back into the tank. And so that's what this looks like. This filter in particular also comes with another type of outtake that actually you attach to here, and it can go across the tank, and it's almost like a waterfall effect instead of the heavy stream just coming out in one area. So, ease this on. Put that down in. Do the smart thing, I'll put my thing on first. And then of course you want the two as far apart from each other as you can get them.
And one note here, this is a 145 gallon tank, and it is 6 feet long, which is much longer than the typical 55 gallon tanks that are 4 feet long.
Why don't you fight with it for a little bit? It does work. There we go.
So one thing I want to point out here is that the output has a nice 90-degree flow connector, chute, whatever you want to call it, on there. And when it distributes the water, we like it to come out on top of the water so that it acts like a waterfall in a natural stream, or like a riffle or a rapid, so that it actually oxygenates the water as it moves it through. So, and that is it.
Alright, so what we have here is we are down to our 60 degrees that we got our initial tap water down to. So now we're taking our 57 degree water from our old tank and siphoning it into here. We're going to fill it up. I also just added some of our tap water conditioner here for the original amount of tap water that we added in, and then also we're going to have to add in a little bit more tap water to make sure we get up to the top, because this whole tank won't fill our tank here up. And then once we get this water in and up over the intake tube here, then we can plug our filter in and get that started.
So here we go. We have transferred over by siphon and also by bucket water from the 55-gallon tank into the 145-gallon tank, and Jenna is priming the coastal, is that what it is? Cascade filter, and we will see if this thing, I've also had luck, once you get it that far, just turning it on and let it,
It's on, but it might need more water in
yeah. All right, we'll wait a little bit, but we can transfer the fish over. You can see.
Yeah, it's trying.
Yeah.
It might need some more water.
Yeah.
All right. Oh. Hold on, you're going wrong way. There you go.
Look at this, new home.
Woo-hoo.
Beautiful.
Yeah, you two right now. Quick one.
Oh,
Oh, I got a twofer.
oh, wow.
Okay, well, if we stay in. Easy, Mama. There you go.
And we have some fish that are checking out their new environment, some rainbows. And what sizes do we have, Jenna?
The biggest one is just about 12 inches long, and the little guy here is maybe about 8 inches. Little girl, excuse me.
Yes.
All girls.
Yeah. And these are all triploids, which, Jenna, go ahead and talk a little bit about triploids.
So triploidy basically means that they're all female, but they're sterile. They can't actually breed then, instead of being diploid, which is what most things typically are. So the good thing is that even though these guys aren't native in our waterways, they're still a great indicator species, along with other species of trout, but they can't intermix with the native trout and create hybrid offspring, being triploid, with them being sterile.
Okay, and what I'll also let everybody know is that these eggs started out on the West Coast in Washington State, and they were shipped to the DNR hatchery in Western Maryland, and they went through a hardening process. I think what they do there is just treat the eggs to make sure there's no sickness in the eggs, and then the group of Trout in the Classroom people went up in December of 2019, probably the second week, and we picked up about 100 eggs for each of the 124 schools that we did in the 2019-2020 TIC season. These are the remainder of the rainbow trout that Irvine Nature Center has. And so these are not even a year old yet. They're only about, let's see, maybe 10 months. 10 months old. So,
Baby picture of them over here.
oh yeah.
There's their baby picture.
Yeah.
That was the eggs, and then they grew up and got bigger and bigger. And then we released 85 fingerlings into Morgan Run, and then these were the couple that we saved so that we would have both adult trout and then the eggs again in December when we get eggs again to show the life cycle.
Okay. And this whole process will start over in December when the eggs become available at the hatchery this year. And here we have a little tip that we both use when we're having trouble priming the filters. We're shooting water up the intake from the hose to help prime the filter, since we don't have a full tank of water to start out with. Are we having any luck?
I think it's staying, maybe. It's just not as strong.
Oh, got it. Here we
But
go.
It's going.
There we go.
And it's coming out the other end.
There we go. Oh, we go. There we go. Look at that. Of course, it's coming out more than what's going in because there's water in the filter.
In the filter, yeah.
So at some point it'll catch up. Okay, we're back again, and we're taking the Fluval 406 filter off of our 55-gallon trout in the classroom. This has all the active bacteria in it. So what we decided to do here was to use it to quick start the other tank up. So we took out the pre-filter, which was pretty well clogged up with stuff, and the top foam pads, and cleaned all those, but left all the biomass in there with all the crud. And we cleaned the top two filter pads, which I believe these are 4-micron mesh that we had cut special for the filter to help to get all the fine particulate out. And I'm sticking them back in. And then Jenna is going to put the rest of the filter together here.
Alright, so this is the pre-filter that we rinsed off. And then our hood.
Oh, show the bottom part.
Oh yeah.
When you clean out the impeller that's behind here, you need to make sure that this is down nice and solid. And
It's in there.
yeah. And
There we go.
yeah. Oh yeah. Okay, here's the impeller. And that little shaft goes into, that little shaft there goes into the hole. And it's a pretty good fit. There, you heard the snap. And what you notice is that this is, the ring is recessed down from the top of the filter base. Okay. And the reason we're doing it this way with the valve is because Jenna's actually replacing the valve because the red handle to lock it down actually got broke. Normally, you could just lock the white lever in the up position, which turns the valve off for the hoses to keep the water in there. And all the Fluval 406 parts are available on Amazon, so you can usually get them pretty quick.
So that's good to go?
Hard.